If you've ever cracked open a can of sardines and wondered how those tiny, silvery fish made their way from the ocean to your plate, you're not alone. Most people just see the finished product, neatly packed, swimming in oil or sauce, ready to eat. But behind every can is a massive, high-speed operation that starts far out at sea and ends with billions of sardines sealed up and shipped around the world. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the industrial process that makes it all possible. Whether you're a sardine fan or just curious about how your food is made, you're about to see a side of the seafood industry that's rarely shown. Let's start at the very beginning, the open ocean. Sardines aren't just any fish, they're a keystone species, meaning they play a huge role in the marine food web. They travel in enormous schools, sometimes so dense they look like shimmering underwater clouds. These schools can stretch for hundreds of meters, and when the conditions are right, they're a gold mine for fishing fleets. The sheer scale is hard to imagine. Every year, more than 3 million tons of sardines are caught worldwide. That's enough to fill a line of cans stretching around the planet, several times over. But catching sardines isn't as simple as dropping a net and hoping for the best. Timing is everything. The best fishing happens at dusk or during the night, when sardines rise closer to the surface to feed on plankton. In the past, fishermen relied on instinct, experience, and a sharp eye for telltale signs, like flocks of seagulls circling above or bubbles breaking the surface. These days, it's a high-tech game. Modern fishing boats are equipped with sonar and radar systems that can pinpoint the exact location, size, and density of a sardine school. The technology works a bit like an underwater echolocation. Sound waves are sent out, bounce off the fish and return to the boat, painting a detailed picture of what's happening below. Once a school is located, the action ramps up fast. The most common method is called purse seining. Imagine a giant net, hundreds of meters long, being unfurled in a wide circle around the school. The boat moves quickly, closing the loop and trapping thousands, sometimes millions of sardines in one go. Then the bottom of the net is drawn tight, like pulling the drawstring on a bag. It's a dramatic moment. The water churns, the fish flash silver, and the crew works quickly to haul the catch aboard. But here's where things get interesting. Sardines are delicate. They spoil quickly, and their quality drops fast if they're not handled right. So as soon as they're brought on board, they're transferred into tanks filled with ice-cold seawater. Some boats use powerful suction pumps to move the fish, while others rely on smaller nets. Either way, the goal is the same: chill the sardines as fast as possible to lock in freshness. This step is crucial because the clock is ticking from the moment the fish leave the water. The next phase is all about speed and efficiency. The boats race back to port, often arriving within hours of the catch. At the dock, the sardines are unloaded, sometimes by hand, sometimes with conveyor belts or cranes, into waiting trucks lined with more ice. The entire process is a race against time. Factories want the fish delivered and processed within 24 hours, ideally much less. The fresher the sardine, the better the final product. Now let's step inside the canning factory. This is where the industrial magic really happens. Picture a facility the size of several football fields humming with activity. In some of the world's largest plants, like the famous Gomes da Costa factory in Brazil, more than 2 million cans of sardines are produced every single day. That's a staggering number, and it takes a finely tuned operation to pull it off. When the sardines arrive, they're still packed in ice, their silvery scales glinting under the factory lights. The first stop is a series of cold water baths which keep the fish at a steady temperature, usually around 5 degrees Celsius. This helps prevent spoilage and keeps the flesh firm for the next steps. From here, the process can go one of two ways: manual or automated. In some factories, skilled workers line up at stainless steel tables, each armed with a sharp knife or a pair of scissors. They work quickly but carefully, removing the heads and guts from each fish. It's repetitive, but there's an art to it. Too rough, and the fish falls apart. Too slow, and the line backs up. Manual processing is slower, but it often results in less waste and higher quality, especially for premium brands. Other factories use high-speed machines to do the job. Sardines are loaded onto conveyor belts and fed into evisceration machines equipped with spinning blades and mechanical tongs. These machines can process thousands of fish per hour, slicing off heads and scooping out guts with impressive precision. It's a marvel of engineering, but it's not perfect. Some fish still need a human touch to clean up any missed bits. Once cleaned, the sardines are ready for the next step: brining. They're soaked in a salty solution for about half an hour. This not only seasons the fish, but also helps firm up the flesh, making it easier to handle later on. After brining, the sardines are arranged on metal racks, often tilted at an angle to let excess liquid drain away. They're given a quick rinse to remove any leftover salt, then it's on to cooking. Cooking is where the process can really diverge depending on the factory and the final product. Some sardines are pre-cooked in large steam ovens where they're exposed to temperatures between 100 and 120 degrees Celsius for 10 to 20 minutes. This ensures the fish are cooked through but still moist and tender. Other factories skip this step and pack the raw, cleaned sardines directly into cans, along with oil, tomato sauce, or other preserving liquids. The cans are then sealed and cooked during the sterilization process, which we'll get to in a bit. At this point, the factory floor is a blur of activity. Workers and machines move in sync each step time to keep the line moving and the fish as fresh as possible. It's a delicate balance, too slow and the sardines lose quality, too fast and mistakes happen. But when it all comes together, the result is a product that's safe, tasty, and ready for shelves around the world. Now let's zoom in on the canning itself, because this is where the humble sardine gets its final identity. After cooking or brining, the sardines are carefully arranged inside the cans. This isn't just about cramming as many fish as possible into a tiny space. There's actually a bit of an art to it. In some factories, workers still do this by hand, lining up the fish so they fit snugly, tails overlapping heads, all facing the same direction. It's oddly satisfying to watch, and it's one of those details that separates a premium can from a generic one. In high-volume plants, though, machines do most of the work using gentle pushers and guides to nudge the fish into place. Either way, the goal is the same. Pack the can tightly, but not so much that the fish get crushed. Once the sardines are in, it's time for the preserving liquid. This is where the flavor magic happens. Some cans get a splash of olive oil, others get vegetable oil, tomato sauce, or even spicy chili mixtures. The choice of liquid isn't just about taste, it also helps preserve the fish, keeping them moist and extending shelf life. The liquid is usually added hot, which helps drive out any remaining air and creates a vacuum seal when the can is closed. Sealing the cans is a high-speed operation. The filled cans move down the line to an automatic seamer where a lid is placed on top and crimped tightly to the body of the can. This isn't just a simple snap-on lid. These machines use rollers and pressure to create a hermetic seal, locking out oxygen and locking in freshness. If you've ever wondered why canned sardines last so long without refrigeration, this is the secret. No air means no bacteria, no spoilage, and no funky flavors. But the process isn't done yet. The sealed cans are still full of raw or partially cooked fish, and they need to be made completely safe to eat. That's where sterilization comes in. The cans are loaded into giant pressure cookers called autoclaves. Think of them as industrial-sized pressure cookers, big enough to hold thousands of cans at once. Inside, the temperature climbs to around 120 to 130 degrees Celsius, and the pressure rises to match. This step kills off any remaining bacteria, fungi, or other microorganisms that could cause the food to spoil. It also finishes cooking the sardines if they were packed raw. Depending on the size of the can and the type of sauce, this process can take anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes. After sterilization, the cans are gradually cooled to prevent thermal shock, which could warp the metal or cause leaks. They're then washed and dried to remove any residue from the cooking process. At this point, the cans are basically indestructible, sealed, sterile, and ready to last for years on a shelf. But before they're shipped out, there's one more step: quality control. Every batch of cans is sampled and tested to make sure the seal is perfect, the contents are safe, and the flavor is just right. Some factories even use X-ray machines to check for bones or other foreign objects. It's a level of scrutiny you might not expect for such a humble product, but with billions of cans produced every year. Even a tiny mistake can turn into a big problem. Now, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture. The industrial sardine process is a marvel of efficiency, but it's also a story of adaptation. Over the decades, the industry has had to evolve, balancing the need for mass production with the demand for quality and sustainability. In some places, overfishing has threatened sardine populations, leading to stricter quotas and better management. Many factories now work closely with fisheries to ensure that the sardines they use are caught responsibly, with minimal impact on the environment. Some even carry certifications that guarantee the fish were sourced from sustainable stocks. There's also a human side to this story. In many coastal towns, sardine canning is more than just an industry, it's a way of life. Generations of families have worked in the factories, passing down skills and traditions. For some, it's a source of pride to know that their work ends up on tables around the world. For others, it's simply a reliable job in a changing economy. Either way, the people behind the process are as much a part of the story as the fish themselves. And what about the end product? Canned sardines have a reputation for being cheap and basic, but they're actually a nutritional powerhouse. Packed with protein, omega-3 fatty acids, calcium, and vitamin D, they're one of the healthiest convenience foods you can buy. In some countries, sardines are a staple, eaten straight from the can, tossed into salads, or served on toast. In others, they're a delicacy, with gourmet brands offering hand-packed fillets in fancy oils and sauces. No matter how you eat them, you're getting a food that's been carefully handled from sea to shelf. Let's not forget the global reach of this industry. From Portugal to Morocco, from the Philippines to Brazil, sardine canning is a truly international business. Each region has its own traditions and specialties. In Portugal, for example, sardines are often packed in olive oil and celebrated with colorful retro packaging. In Morocco, the industry is a major employer and export earner. In Brazil, factories like Gomes da Costa have turned sardine canning into a science, with production lines that run around the clock. But for all the differences, the core process is remarkably similar everywhere. Catch the fish, keep them cold, clean, and cook them. Pack them in cans and make sure they're safe to eat. It's a process that's been refined over more than a century, blending old-school know-how with cutting-edge technology, so the next time you open a can of sardines, take a second to appreciate the journey those little fish have been on. From the open ocean to the factory floor, from the hands of fishermen and factory workers to your kitchen, it's a story of scale, speed, and skill. Billions of sardines, each one handled with care, packed away for a rainy day or a quick lunch. If you've made it this far, you probably won't look at a can of sardines the same way again. Maybe you'll even feel a little more connected to the people and places behind your food. And if you're still on the fence about eating sardines, remember, they're not just good for you, they're good for the planet, too. Small fish like sardines are among the most sustainable sources of animal protein, requiring less feed, less water, and less energy than larger fish or land animals. So, whether you're a lifelong sardine lover or just sardine curious, I hope this deep dive into the industrial process has given you a new appreciation for what goes into every can. If you enjoyed this look behind the scenes, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories about how everyday foods are made. And if you have a favorite way to eat sardines, or a memory tied to them, drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. Thanks for watching, and next time you see that little can on the shelf, you'll know exactly what it took to get there.